I wanted to see if it was possible to hold my breath for 4 minutes underwater in a cage in the middle of the ocean surrounded by sharks. And you won't believe how much we had to go through just to get here, let alone how much it cost. We had to take a private boat into the ocean and use a special cage that would allow me to come up for air. But this isn't where the story begins. I had to go through unbelievable training. We came to this pool to film. They're not letting us film.
So we bought a hotel room.
This all began when I wanted to see how long I could hold my breath for. They say that the average person can hold their breath for around 30 seconds to a minute. With just a few days of practice, they can get it to 2 or 3. However, elite Navy SEALs can hold their breath for over 4 minutes. So 4 minutes was the goal. And if you want to see how long that really is, hold your breath in 3, 2, 1.
Minute and 10 seconds.
On the first day, I got just over a minute, so as you can see, I had a long way to go. And I will show you what I discovered to hold your breath for an insane amount of time. But first, I wanted to test the difference between water and land. And this is where I discovered how much of an impact staying still really has. Notice how purple my face is. And back in the hot tub, notice how still I'm attempting to stay. This is because these convulsions that you're seeing is my brain telling my body that I need more oxygen in my blood. The more I move around, the more my body uses up the oxygen. But as you're about to see, this could be potentially very dangerous.
What's the time? 3:48.
I still had quite a ways to go to hit 4 minutes, but pay really close attention because this is where you see the dangers occur. The thing on my finger is a monitor that measures my heartbeat as well as my blood oxygen level. Right now it's 100%, but you don't want it to fall very low. If oxygen levels are below 88%, that is a cause for concern. But I had a feeling that mine was going lower, however, I didn't know how much yet, or exactly what would happen. It looks like my resting heart rate is like 46. I guess that's kind of low.
You might have bradycardia.
What is bradycardia?
It's slower than normal heartbeat, and it can prevent the brain and other organs from getting enough oxygen. Well, I think it's fine.
At this point, I still hadn't even held my breath for 4 minutes in or out of water, but that was all about to change.
10 seconds to 4 minutes.
After I did my first 4-minute breath hold, I got to see how much my blood oxygen level would fall.
Blood oxygen levels now dropping nearly to 60.
Keep in mind, below 90% was cause for concern.
Just achieved 4 minutes. Your blood oxygen levels dropping below. That was just a little bit over 4 minutes. You're at 49%, 47% blood oxygen level, 46%, 44, 43, 42%, 41%.
And notice my heartbeat going up.
40% blood oxygen level.
But it gets much worse. And this is where it just begins, because although I did a 4-minute breath hold on land, doing it in the water was much harder for a number of reasons. I have to dive down to grab onto the weight. Any sort of movement will use up your oxygen, and even holding myself down there made it significantly harder. On top of that, the water pressure made it harder to keep air inside of my lungs. And it was a little bit scary being down there in case something were to happen. The good news is, if something did happen, which you'll see soon that it does, I always had someone in the water with me supervising and keeping me safe. That day, I had done my first 4-minute breath hold on land. However, I still had a long ways to go in the water. And to make things even worse, there was only 2 more days until we would do the actual shark dive.
We took too long to hold our breath. They checked us out. We can't get into the room.
On the second to last day, something happened that I didn't expect. I started by hyperventilating, getting as much oxygen into my system as possible. I took a deep breath and went down, ready to beat 4 minutes. Now, the one thing you should know about holding your breath is how painful it could be. There's 3 stages to a breath hold. Right now, I was in the first one. I felt really tingly and calm because of all the oxygen that I still had. Since I started by hyperventilating, I brought a lot of extra oxygen into my body. This helps me make the first stage go as long as possible, because extending the second and third stage is not as easy. Right now, I'm starting to get into the second. This is where enough oxygen has been used up that my brain is telling me to get more. It starts to feel a little uncomfortable, but if I want to beat 4 minutes, I have to push through. And then, you reach the third stage. This is where you see yourself physically convulse. Your body wants to get oxygen so bad that it's doing anything it can to breathe. But I couldn't breathe because I was underwater. By the time I get to the first convulsion, it's incredibly painful. But if I were gonna break 4 minutes, I would have to do 60. And I would have to keep my eyes open because I could slowly see the world fading out around me. And this is where everything went wrong. I came up for air thinking that I'd done it. I couldn't hear anything, and as I struggled to take my goggles off, everything went black. And to make it worse, I'd only lasted 3 minutes and 20 seconds. I hadn't come close to doing a 4-minute breath hold, and it was now the final day. Tomorrow we would literally fly down to Hawaii to go try this in the middle of the ocean surrounded by sharks. At this point, some people might give up, but I decided I had to give it another try. Okay, so apparently hyperventilation is not the best way to increase the oxygen in my system. It's gonna get my heart rate up too high, which is gonna potentially hinder the performance. So I'm gonna try and just do really slow, deep breathing to see if I can lower my heart rate right from the start. I had no idea if this would make a big enough difference. It seemed like I was getting less oxygen than huge deep breaths in, but at this point I had to give it a try because I was kind of out of time. Because of how much oxygen it takes out of you, notice how I react when I come up for air. How long was that?
4 minutes and 7 seconds.
I just did a 4-minute and 7-second breath hold, and now it was time to fly down to Hawaii where I would try the same thing, but in the ocean, in a cage, surrounded by sharks. Why do I want to go to such extremes to do these crazy challenges? Well, let me tell you.
Yeah, we paid $700 for the car. Please subscribe.
Because I believe that everyone in this world is more capable than they think they are, and I want to prove it.
You excited to see some sharks today?
Yes, sir. I've never seen a shark. If I don't make it past this, I still need you to publish the video.
I'll do it. Tyler started walking down towards the boat.
I'm extremely nervous.
And now you'll see why this video is actually so expensive.
Hello.
Hi guys, checking in?
Yep.
14 of you.
Yeah. There's 5 of them.
Yeah, you guys bought out the whole boat.
Yeah, just with the memes.
We bought out the whole boat because what I'm about to do isn't something you see every day, and to the average person just wanting to see some sharks, they probably wouldn't have liked it. So we hopped on board where we would drive out to the cage, which was currently anchored in the middle of the ocean, hopefully surrounded by around 20 sharks.
The water is gonna be 500 feet deep.
This is where you're gonna hop in the water right here and just swim to that cage as fast as you can, alright?
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
just climb over those bars as fast as you can. No, I'm just joking.
Oh, okay.
When we finally got to the cage, I realized I was more nervous than I thought I was going to be. Not because of the shark. They were honestly so cute. I was extremely nervous to potentially fail this challenge after spending weeks of practice and thousands of dollars. But by this point, you might have been able to identify what's going to make this harder. I started off with 5 minutes of deep breathing. This is what I did in the pool when I did a 4-minute and 7-second breath hold. I looked down and there were several sharks below me. On top of that, the water was really cold, making me shiver, and the waves were tossing me around. And as you remember, movement is not good. But after 5 minutes, I prepared to take my breath. The water was so blue, I could see all around me. And you'll see all around me, there were a ton of sharks. I slowly started to creep down to the bottom where I'd hold myself like I did at the bottom of the pool. The water below me was over 500 feet deep and it was like a void. If you look carefully, you could see me sticking my feet outside of the cage so I could hold myself down. While I was doing this, the sharks were swimming all around me in search of an easy meal. This was one of the craziest experiences that I've ever done. And I was still in the first stage of the breath hold, but it was getting really hard to hold myself down. Because the ocean water is so salty, I actually float a lot more than I would in a pool. And if you see me shaking around a bunch, that's actually not me, but it's the cage. Because as I was under the water, the waves on top were throwing it around and it was only getting worse. I started to run out of breath. I didn't know how long I'd been down there, but I felt like it wasn't close to 4 minutes. My heart rate started to go up because I thought about what happened just 2 days before when I literally blacked out. I headed up towards the surface to see how long it had been. I waited for as long as I could, and as soon as I went above the water, I was told that I only made it 2 minutes, and this is where things took a turn. I was being tossed around by the ocean, getting salt water in my mouth, and I was freezing to the point where I was getting seasick, but I didn't want to give up. I went through another 5 minutes of deep breathing and decided to try again. My nerves were high. If anything, this was going to be harder. I decided to try not to go all the way down to the bottom again. I let my mind zone out, and I was going to give it everything I got. And because it takes so long in between each breath hold, I wasn't going to get another shot after this. I could feel my heartbeat racing, and that's not what I wanted. I felt like throwing up. I tried to remain as still as possible, but it was getting so painful. I had completely lost track of time. I felt weak and dizzy. I wasn't sure if I was close, but I told myself I'd stay under until I did the full 60 convulsions. To get myself to this point after training, I'd pushed myself way harder than I ever had before. And despite this, I never understood how hard this challenge would be. And then I finally came up for air to see how long I'd been under.
How long? 2:30.
So how hard is this challenge?
It's really hard.
So hard, in fact, the boat crew were impressed, saying 2 minutes and 30 seconds is around what professional freedivers would get in these conditions. So what do you think? Would you try?